Hello, I'm Beth Jenkins with the North Carolina Community Foundation. It's my pleasure to share this with you, the Friends of the North Carolina Public Libraries. We're going to talk today about something so powerful and exciting it can mean the difference between an average library and an excellent library. And that something is called endowment. In the next few minutes, I'm going to try to turn you into friends of the power of endowment. Here's our outline. We're going to cover the following. First, what is an endowment? 2, why would you want one for your library or friends group? 3, how can you begin one? What are the tools and understandings you need to get started? Hint, it can be much easier than you might think. So first, what is this thing called endowment? Let's break it down into 3 essential parts. An endowment is a sum of money permanently invested on behalf of your organization, and every year you get back a percentage of that investment. You typically try to avoid spending your initial principal investment, so the idea is that the endowment continues to grow, and therefore the money you get back from it each year is growing as well. It's that simple. We call this the power of endowment, and this chart shows how an initial sum of money can grow exponentially over time, even as it continues to give you back money each year from your investment. Let's say you start with a sum of $25,000. In 20 years, you have gotten back your initial investment and your endowment balance has grown by half. After 40 years, you have gotten back triple your initial investment and your endowment balance has way more than doubled. It's all about harnessing the power of compound interest and seeking good stewardship for your endowment. Is endowment a new idea? Certainly not. Here's a bit of history on some American endowments. I think it's interesting to know that the endowment idea has been alive and well in America for many years, even involving our founding fathers. Did you know that George Washington himself gave an endowment of $20,000 to help save the predecessor of Washington and Lee University? Ben Franklin, who is often called the father of American philanthropy, put his own stamp on the endowment concept and left 1,000 pounds sterling, this would have been maybe around $200,000 in today's dollars, to both Boston and Philadelphia. He instructed them to invest it for 200 years. In the meantime, they could use some of it to fund scholarships and other things. 200 years later, when the money was finally dispersed, the Boston Fund had grown to about $5 million. The Philadelphia Fund was about $2.5 million. And finally, Harvard University, $42 billion in endowment. Maybe that's excessive, but on the other hand, maybe it's the secret to their excellence. So now that we're all somewhat familiar with the idea of endowment, let's move to part 2. Why would you want an endowment for your organization? Oh, let us count the whys. First, stability. Having an endowment sends a strong signal that you are going to be around for a long time, and that's certainly something we want for our libraries. We hope they're going to be around for a long, long time. Second, having an endowment removes the uncertainty of at least one funding source. Grants come and go, natural disasters can decimate annual giving, but an endowment is there forever, providing an income stream in perpetuity, which is our favorite word in the endowment world. If you have an aging donor base, planned giving is essential. Why? Well, you want to capture gifts from this generation now for the future. We've all heard about the intergenerational transfer of wealth, and boy, is it happening. An endowment can also provide funding for restricted purposes. You may want to have one general purpose endowment and another that is targeted to a special program. Having access to that sort of funding can be the extra added enhancement that can make all the difference. We've all heard of endowment, mostly through our colleges and universities, but there's no reason this powerful idea can't be harnessed for any nonprofit that seeks to be around for a long time. And again, that's what we intend for our libraries. In fact, I was in Charleston, South Carolina, not too long ago and saw this cute billboard outside their library. Take a minute to ponder this. Since much of what I've talked about so far is a little theoretical, let me offer a couple of real-life examples of library endowments in action. Both of these examples are drawn from endowments we hold at the North Carolina Community Foundation, just to be clear. So, over in Moore County, we manage a large endowment for a relatively small but charming rural library. What's the backstory here? How did this endowment come about? Well, here's the scoop. A generous donor moved from New York, where he and his wife were dancers on Broadway. She was also with the June Taylor Dancers. Remember, they used to appear on the old Jackie Gleason TV show. At any rate, they moved to this small town in North Carolina, and he absolutely fell in love with the local library. And when they died, they left an endowment of $1 million to the library through a planned gift in their wills. The endowment has since provided $90,000 in enhancement funding for the library, and of course it's still going strong. Maybe we should all hope that a star from Broadway will retire to our town. Another example involves a municipal library in a mid-sized North Carolina town. This library system actually started 5 separate endowments, each geared to a different service or program. You can see here a listing of these targeted uses. I'm sure many of you could easily come up with such a list yourselves. Now let's turn to the final but most important question. You know what an endowment is. You know why you might want one. How do you get started? This brings us to what I call the nuts and bolts. The first of these nuts and bolts is, are you going to have to do this all by yourself, or are there experts out there who can help you? Yes, indeed there are, and one of the best options you have is with your local community foundation. Practically every corner of North Carolina is covered by a community foundation. I represent one of these, the North Carolina Community Foundation. Community foundations offer complete management services for nonprofit endowments. These services include, but are not limited to, investment management, marketing and planned giving guidance, gift acknowledgement and tax deductibility. Community foundations are all 501c3 charities ourselves, so anytime someone makes a gift to an endowment we hold, that donor's gift qualifies for tax deductibility, and we're happy to provide the gift receipt. This can be a great help if you have lots of gifts coming into your endowment. I'm biased, but I do think community foundations offer the best package of comprehensive services for nonprofit endowment management. I wanted to share this slide because it shows the North Carolina Community Foundation's service area across the state. But there are about 12 or 13 other community foundations in North Carolina, many of these in the larger towns like Charlotte, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, Asheville, Fayetteville, Durham, and so forth. I'm sorry I don't have a slide showing the location of all of these, but if you don't know your local community foundation, please feel free to email me and I'll help you find it. Two of the key metrics of successful endowments are prudent investment stewardship, which involves what we call asset allocation strategies, and the spending policy. In other words, what percentage you're going to take back out of your endowment every year. I can only speak for the North Carolina Community Foundation, but here's a snapshot of our asset allocation formula, which is 60% of the endowment is invested in stock, 20% in fixed assets or bonds, and 10% in cash. Our spending policy is to pay out 5% of each endowment to the organization it benefits every year. So if you have an endowment of $100,000, you're getting back $5,000 from it every year. Well, you say that all makes sense, but where's this money coming from to begin the endowment? And by the way, how much does it take to get started? Again, I can only speak for my foundation, but we require a starting gift of $25,000. And where this money comes from boils down to simple arithmetic. It can be a single gift of $25,000 from your own organizational assets. It can be a $25,000 gift from one generous donor or several. It can be a combination of organizational assets and donor gifts. Finally, how do you get started from here? The first essential step is to get a commitment from your board. An endowment is a big commitment, and you need the support of everyone around the table. Next, identify a person or subcommittee to spearhead the endowment campaign effort. From there, you will identify and make the establishing gift for the endowment, and, in the case of the Community Foundation, you will sign a simple establishing agreement. And you're off and running. Remember, an endowment will feed you if you feed it. Continue to pay attention to your endowment once it's started. Good investments will take you part of the way toward growth, but steady, ongoing gifts will also be a key to your strong future. Above all, don't wait to do this. Remember the old saying, when's the best time to plant an oak tree? 50 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. I'll stop there and hope I've provided some good food for thought. If you'd like to know more, here's my email. I hope you'll reach out.